My name is Harry Moore, and this is Sarah Schrader. We're going to be your presenters for today. We're presenting on ArcGIS Online, the mapping platform for your organization. So if that is not what you came to see, go ahead and walk out right now. We won't hold it against you. This is your one and only moment, or else we close the doors and you're not allowed to go out. And they may turn the heat up. So we're going to go ahead and begin, and here's what we're going to be outlining today. I'm first going to talk about the ArcGIS platform so that we're all on the same page for the presentations that you're about to see. We're going to also then specifically talk about ArcGIS Online and the value it can bring to your organization. We'll go ahead and give you our tips and tricks. Over 10 years of working with ArcGIS Online is sitting up here in front of you. So we're going to try to give you some of that information. And then we'll go through some demonstrations on the configurable application templates, apps for everyone, and then the most important next steps and filling out your survey for us. So, ArcGIS Platform. How many here use ArcGIS Online on a weekly basis? Please raise your hand. Okay, how many of you have not logged into ArcGIS Online yet? All right, just a handful. Okay, well, hopefully by the end of the session, you'll feel comfortable to be able to log into that. So in order to understand ArcGIS Online, I wanted to just understand what the ArcGIS platform is. So you may have heard this term today, and you will hear this throughout the conference, a mapping platform. So what does that mean? What is a mapping platform? Well, if you look at Webster's dictionary, you may find a definition, but I will give you the official Esri definition. A mapping platform enables every employee and third-party contractor in your organization to easily discover, use, make, share maps from any device, anywhere, anytime. It's this set of tools that creates a mapping platform. So a mapping platform is literally for everyone. It does allow you to access your content, whether you're on an Android or an iPhone. It allows you to do it in the field or in this room. So that's what it is. But what's the value of a mapping platform like this? And I really just want to stress that first one for the employees. How many people do we have in that belong to a GIS department here? Okay, most of you. So think about your human resources department for a moment. They buy platforms that manage your time cards. They buy a platform that will manage your merit increase. Public Works will buy a platform that manages their permits. Planning buys a platform that manages planning drawings and all that good stuff. Every department buys their own individual thing to do their job better. But we're different. Our mapping platform and what you in the audience do crosses every department. The planning department does not buy their own mapping platform. Human Resources does not buy their own mapping platform. It's the same one. And it's the one that you manage and maintain. It's the one that you populate with all your content. So that's the idea that I want to get across. Like this idea of a mapping platform, it's cross-organizational. You've heard Jack say that many times. So let's dig into this a little bit more. So it is a mapping platform for everyone. And in particular, not just departments, but types of people in your city, in your county, or your organization. For example, there's all of us who are probably here, the GIS professionals, like live and breathe in desktop, whether that's ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. But there are other people, like a knowledge worker. You can have a knowledge worker in Public Works, a knowledge worker in planning, a knowledge worker in Parks and Recs. It's that idea of somebody who knows what they do every day, but they need a map to do that better. So that's what this mapping platform does, is it enables all these different types of people to do their job better. All right. It also allows you to access content from any device, anytime, anywhere. What I want to draw your attention to is in the center of this diagram, that word portal. In order to do this and have the mapping platform be accessible any device, anytime, anywhere, you need to really have a portal. And ArcGIS is built at its foundation with a portal. And it's through that you can access content in desktop, on a web browser, Firefox, Chrome. Anybody use Internet Explorer? Okay, thank you for laughing at that. Thank you. And it allows you to do that, and it brings in either your services from your own ArcGIS for servers, from the Living Atlas, from everywhere. But what brings it all together is that idea of a portal. So, ArcGIS revolves around this concept of a portal. And this is huge. This is that paradigm shift that you've heard about so many years ago, and I'm hoping I'm articulating it in a way that makes sense. It revolves around a portal, and this portal allows you to collaborate with geospatial content. Now, what Esri does is we offer it in two flavors, two different versions. We offer it with ArcGIS Online, which is the cloud. It's Esri's cloud that manages your portal. Or you can take it and put it behind your firewall, and you do all the management and keep it very private, and you take on that added responsibility of standing it up, using it. So today, we're only going to be focusing on ArcGIS Online. So you will sometimes hear the word portal, and when you hear the word portal, it's referring to that concept. And again, you can have it either behind your firewall or in the cloud. In this session, it's only ArcGIS Online. So maybe I'll give you another opportunity to get up and leave if you thought this was going to be about portal for ArcGIS. Okay, good. So what is the value of ArcGIS Online? Why would you use ArcGIS Online instead of portal for ArcGIS, or just in general? Well, first and foremost, you're leveraging Esri's infrastructure. We take on the responsibility to manage and maintain the portal. You don't. So it's our butts on the line if the stuff hits the fan and not yours. So that's huge. Because of that, we actually are able to scale very quickly. This at the plenary in the morning, we had a lot of people hitting our vector base maps. You know what we did? We just spun up a ton of servers before Monday morning's plenary because all 15,000 of you are outside, like logging on to the sites and stuff. So we can do that. We also have the built-in security. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, we're FSMA Ramp 2 certified if you really cared. You know, we use HTTPS and you can enable SSL. We take care of all of that. And that gets into that compliances as well. You know, we're held to a high standard on our cloud infrastructure. We also do all the automatic updates. You don't have to worry about it. It's beautiful, actually. You know, Sarah and I, we get to wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden we have new story maps to play with. And they're just there, and it's great. And I put on here lower cost of ownership. Does anybody know why I put that on there? Yeah, Sarah does know why. How many of you heard of your entitlements? Raise your hand if you're using your entitlements. Okay, here's the deal with entitlements. If you have ArcGIS Desktop, if you're an ArcMap user, you have access to ArcGIS Online. You know, Jack gave you that. So that's why we have this lower cost of ownership, because if you use desktop, you already have this portal. You have access to it. So there's no additional cost for you to do what we're going to show you today. In fact, our next steps and our action items are for you to log in and start using it because you already have it. Also, we have the ready-to-use content. This is our Living Atlas, and this is Esri still managing and maintaining that and letting you use it. And then we can also rapidly deploy these web maps and apps from the templates. In a matter of minutes, you can stand up maps and apps. Now, with Portal for ArcGIS, I do want to make some distinctions. Because it is behind your firewall, when Esri comes out with an update, we're going to ship you something, or you're going to go download that and install. You're going to go back to your office and install it and do everything else. And it may be a couple months after our release of ArcGIS Online. So there is a bit of a disconnect. If you're using ArcGIS Online, you wake up in the morning, it's done. If you're using Portal for ArcGIS where it's behind your firewall, it's up to you to do the updates and manage and maintain that. So there may be a lag between the two. All right, I mentioned apps. Apps are extremely important. When you saw the plenary on Monday, pretty much everything you saw was an app. And that app idea is so important. And it's really important when you think about your workflows at the city, the county, or the state agency. We make groups of apps. One of the most popular, and one of the ones we're going to recommend you start with, is a field app called Collector. But we have several different apps for people that work in the field, our Workforce Manager and our Navigator, Survey 123. We also have another selection of apps for the office. This is that knowledge worker, the non-GIS professional that just wants a map, and they're sort of maybe tech savvy and can figure something out by themselves. We have those great tools for them, Esri Maps for Office and so forth. And then we have apps for the public. This is the open data, the story maps, some crowdsourcing apps. So this is a huge component to ArcGIS Online. So when you're in ArcGIS Online building maps, the next step is building an app. And I used to be a desktop professional. I spent 4 years editing sewer infrastructure and storm drain infrastructure. That was my life. Vitrified clay pipes. I was like, yes. Never, ever, ever did I think about building an app. We actually had a database administrator and a programmer who would build those apps for me. But that's different nowadays. For these lightweight apps that you just want to get out and have the world see very quickly, you can do it. And I know you will be doing it by the end of this week. For those more robust apps that connect into your other business systems that require customization, dude, you still need that developer. And that's why we have a massive set of SDKs and so forth. But with ArcGIS Online, you can pump these apps out fairly quickly. ArcGIS Online also comes with that content. So how many of you heard the announcement about Digital Globe at the plenary? All right. So about half of you. Well, Esri partnered with Digital Globe, and we basically bought the globe. So we're putting in new imagery around the whole Earth, and it's going to be available inside of ArcGIS Online. We've partnered with Digital Globe to do that, and that is quite amazing, especially if any of you manage and maintain your own base maps with imagery. You know how tedious that can be at times. Well, we're trying to take away some of that burden and just build the best dang base maps in the world. But it also comes with demographic data and other living atlas data. How many of you are participants in the Community Base Map program? Oh, one. Yes, where? Where are you from, sir? Skagit County in Washington State? Nice. Well, thank you very much. So what that means is that his authoritative data has been burned into our base map so that the rest of the world can see all that great information, whether it's trees or parcels. I highly, highly recommend you do this. One of the major benefits is we deal with the base maps. So it's our infrastructure. We're serving up the tiles. We're burning the tiles. And that can reduce the amount of work you're doing with your own servers or even the amount of time you spend doing work at home. At work. And then, of course, tools. It used to be this really amazing world in ArcMap with this network analyst toolbar that would pop up, and you had to have your network data set in there in order to do a drive time. Well, we've taken that burden off of some of the tools, and we've integrated them directly inside of ArcGIS Online. So you can do drive times, you can do walk times, you can find best locations, you can use demographic data that's forecasted in 2020, that's what data sets we have. So we're doing predictions on what the population is going to be. So we're pumping all of this in there just for you guys to use and try to make your jobs easier. How many of you have gone to the census website and tried to download data before? And let me be very clear, they're a great user of ours and they make great applications. Some of that data is already in there for you though. So this is all here, and these are some of the value statements for why ArcGIS Online can be valuable to not only you, but everybody in your organization. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Sarah and have her talk more about some tips and tricks.
All right, so getting started. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. So getting started with ArcGIS Online. There's a lot of fun things to do to get started with ArcGIS Online, and Harry and I came up with our top 10 list. So today, because of time constraints, we're going to be hitting the highlights, right? So this isn't meant to be a step-by-step detailed instructions, but really a nice guide for you, for those of you who haven't logged in, to take that next step, log in and get started. Number one at the top of our list is user authentication options. And that's because identity is the key to security. So from the beginning, you want to step back and think of how do you want your users to be authenticated into your system, into your portal. And what I mean by that is, are you going to leverage your existing enterprise logins? A benefit to that would be one less username and password for people to remember. That would be nice, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can use built-in users within ArcGIS Online. And a benefit to that is, say, for an administrator type user, rather than having their Windows authentication to log in and provide them with all of the administrative capabilities, have it as a separate built-in user with a separate username and password that they use every single time they need to perform those administrative tasks. So at the top of our list, take some time to think about authentication options.
Do any of you have enterprise authentication set up with your ArcGIS Online accounts? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, the three of you. Thank you. So the comment was it wasn't easy, but it is going to be extremely easy for the people to log in after you dealt with your IT. Okay.
Okay. Good to know. And I'm going to be going into some more details for each of these in just a minute, but to hit the high notes here, users and roles. Roles are how we manage access to capabilities. So does a user need to edit, perform analysis, publish information, create applications? Harry and I, we're great. We're good pals. But within our organization, we have different roles, different purposes. If I'm an administrator, I only need to have access to those capabilities, right? And so we manage that with roles. Number 3, create a destination. Your content, your tools aren't going to mean too much if people don't know where to find it, right? So it's important that we make your content discoverable and brand your destination, your portal, to match the rest of your agency. So this is something very important to keep in mind. Next up is default settings. So in ArcGIS Online, Harry already talked about the wealth of ready-to-use content that Esri provides to you within ArcGIS Online, base maps. In addition, he mentioned geocoding services, routing services, printing services. All of those are provided to you automatically. If you choose to use your own services, you can set those up as well. The key to number 4 here is we want to make it as easy as possible for your users to find and use the information and content they want, right? So if you know you want everybody in your organization by default to be using your latest and greatest imagery base map, that's something you can set up ahead of time. Number 5, organization. And we handle organization of our content within ArcGIS Online through groups. So just to recap quick, roles are for providing capabilities to your users, and groups is for organizing your content for your users. It's really important that we provide the right access to the right content to the right user. Speaking of content, let's add some. Build it and they will come. Great movie, right?
Yay, fill the dreams.
But seriously, when you're starting your organization, it's important that you set up the framework, but add some additional content to get started with. You don't want to invite people in to a portal and there's nothing there. That might be a little confusing. So let's start and add those base maps, add those common data layers that are essential to your organization so your users can start using that content and adding their own. Number 7, after you add some content, create information products. And that's a term you might hear more often from Esri, information products. So what does that mean? Well, we mean web maps, web apps, web scenes. And what do those things mean? Well, it means we're taking your content, your data, and putting it into a more meaningful way for people to view that information. Instead of viewing a spreadsheet of information, we're mapping that spreadsheet and adding some capabilities, zooming and filtering, etc. So seeing that web map as an information product, it makes your spreadsheet that you started with much more meaningful to a user. Number 8, now we can start inviting people. We have some content, we have some information there, we have the overall security for authentication options set up, so let's invite people into the organization, into the roles to access that content. Number 9, open your data. In addition to all of those, the wealth of resources that you have internally for your staff and other people within your organization, it's also important to open up your data to your public constituents as needed, and we have a way for you to do that. Last but not least, management. You did all the work to set this up. You're inviting people in to organize it. Those of you who are currently working with your portal, I see some of you shaking your heads, nodding your heads, yes. You need to manage it, right? So we have great ways that you can easily see what's going on within your organization, the content that's being created, the users that are active within your organization, so you have a better understanding of what's going on and how to manage it moving forward. Now we're going to actually step through some demos of what this actually looks like. So I believe when Harry was asking at the beginning of the session here how many people have been working with ArcGIS Online, a lot of people, right? But we still have some people who are less familiar. So I want to highlight where in ArcGIS Online, as an administrator, you can go through our top 10 list. So we started with number 1, user authentication options, because identity is the key to security. Hashtag.
Yeah, identity.
Within your organization, as an administrator, we can choose, as I mentioned before, those authentication options. So under security, we have other options as well, but I'd like to highlight the enterprise logins option. So this is where you would go to click on the option, provide the information from your IST or IT department to set up your enterprise logins, such as Active Directory and some other supported options. In addition to using enterprise logins to provide that single sign-on experience for your users, you can also utilize built-in users. And what we mean by built-in is you assign a really hip and cool username for your user and a password. Next up, users and roles. So once you decide how you want people to be authenticated, to access your organization, how do we manage the capabilities that they'll have access to? We do that within roles within your organization. And once again, this is part of the administrator responsibilities for the organization. Now, when you get started with your ArcGIS Online portal, you'll have a user role, a publisher role, an administrator role by default. That's set up by Esri. But you also have a great option for custom roles. And that can be really important because, you know, there's not one size fits all approach for these roles. So here you can see the many options we have for capabilities to provide to our users within a role grouping. And we have them set aside for content type tasks, administrative permissions, accessing premium content. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these options today, but you can understand that there's a lot of options. So depending on your specific users and what type of access to capabilities they need, you can create 1 to 50 custom roles, right, depending on the needs of your organization.
And I just want to add, I've seen this create a bit of comfort, knowing that you can help a user by giving them a custom role, that they won't delete all your data or delete the maps. I found that it gives a lot of comfort.
Yes, good point. So number 3 on our list was to create a destination. We want to make sure that people can easily find the information that you're trying so hard to provide to them. So this is a demo organization here that we set up, has some basic maps that we're featuring. Towards the bottom of the page, we've configured it to have some helpful web links for our users to find the information and content that they want. Within your organization, there's a default template that you can use to get up and going quickly. No custom coding needed. Just plug in your information, your text, and off you go. If you'd like to do more customization, there are options within the organizational settings, again, for an administrator to work with. Additionally, here we go. Additionally, for the home page, you can edit that home page in basic text formatting, colors, fonts here, or you can view the underlying HTML code. So depending on your staff, your skills, and what you really need to do to brand this for your organization, you have quite a few options here to do so. So next on our list was number 4 regarding the defaults. So in part of the organizational settings here, we're looking at base map galleries, the default base map, and what we mean with defaults, well, users can change the base map later, but again, you're making it easier for them to get up and running more quickly by giving them the information that they more commonly need. In addition to base maps, default maps, really important. Printing services, geocoding and routing services. If you already have services set up for your organization, it's great, and you just plug them in here so that everyone in your organization is using those. Think about it. Your users, they're not going to think to themselves, I need to perform some network analysis, and I need to decide whether to use Esri's services or my own. We don't need to, have them make that decision. We can set it up for them so they can go in and perform the task without having to think of that. And that's how you manage that here. Next on our list, we really wanted to highlight the power of groups. Remember, roles is how we manage capabilities for our users, and groups is how we manage content. So within one or more groups, a user can be assigned to view the information that they need. You can manage groups and set them up based on how your agency is organized, such as department or division. Groups are a great way to manage the content based on sharing options, sharing between organizations, sharing between departments. A group can also be based off of the type of content that it includes. Is this your base map gallery group? Is this containing all of your three-dimensional data for your entire organization? So there are multiple ways to utilize groups for managing that content. And then within the group, you can have one or more members, and so those members have access to that content within the group. And what I mentioned before, I'll mention again, it's very important to provide the right access to the right content to the right people. So in this group, I have 2 members associated with that, so all of the content I share here is what they can see. So if you're thinking of your organization as a whole, think of an administrative department versus, here I mentioned before, public works or land records. Those are different staff in different departments, different focuses and workflows, so we can manage their content in a similar manner in this portal here. Number 6 on our list is adding content, which is very exciting. We want to make sure that you can get started with your portal, add the content such as parcels, center lines, and some of those commonly used main pieces of information, and add them to your portal. There are multiple ways to add content to the portal, and I'm going to highlight just a couple of them today. For starters, we can add zipped files of information from your computer. I worked at a county for many years, 12 years prior to coming to Esri, and quite often as a GIS person, I would be emailed a zipped up shapefile from some other agency or some other department and said, hey, you're a graphics information specialist, can you map this for me? Now, shapefiles and other file types are not going away, right? We need a better way to manage that information, and this is a great way to do that. So if I were at the county now and I had some information, in this case, I have a file geodatabase that somebody sent me. I zip that up. I'm going to add it to my ArcGIS Online account here, tell the program what file type is included in that zip file, and as you can see in this list, there's quite a few different file types available. I'm going to add some keyword tags to make my information discoverable. And when I add that item to ArcGIS Online, it's taking out that file geodatabase, it's storing it in ArcGIS Online, but it's also going to create a hosted feature layer for my organization. And this is key because the file geodatabase can only get us so far. We really need that feature layer to be registered in ArcGIS Online so that we can use it in viewing in maps and web scenes and web applications later on. So in just a few minutes, I was able to upload that file, and now it's living within my ArcGIS Online organization. So rather than have that same staff person come back to me a couple weeks from now with yet another updated version of that file, there are ways later on I can invite that user as a member of this organization, and they can actually maintain this information now in ArcGIS Online. And it's a much better workflow than prior. I do want to highlight a couple things with the items detail page. There's a great update from the ArcGIS Online team in June. How many of you have noticed the differences between the prior version and a couple of you. Okay, and that's okay.
Thank you, Artie.
Thanks. In the items detail page, this is key information. So not only, we're not just adding information to ArcGIS Online and it's kind of there and people can use it. We need to think of this in a way as metadata for people to understand, is this the actual content they need? What does it include? What does it look like? There's a lot of great information here that we can find out about the data from the item detail page. So within ArcGIS Online, you also have options to enable and disable attachments if you're working with this information in the field, perhaps, and you need to add photos for new features or current features. Those are attachments. So there are settings here where you can allow editing, disable and enable attachments, put in your formalized metadata for this information. So I don't have time to go through the entire details page, but this is a very important part of the organizational structure and something to keep in mind when you start adding content. So another great way to add content is through a REST service URL, or not a REST service URL, but from a web service. We support OGC options as well. For my content page, I'm going to choose to add content from the web. Brings up a nice little window and it's telling me that I have 6 different options, KML, OGC options, and a web service URL. I know there is a service of soils that I would like to use, and so I navigate to my REST services page and I can simply copy that REST URL, paste it in the window, and you'll notice it's automatically populating the item title and the keyword tags for my REST service URL. So the content that you currently have, that currently exists, if it exists in a web service, you're saving time here by simply registering that service with your ArcGIS Online portal, and it's bringing over all of the information that you've already defined, which is really helpful.
I'm actually having a hard time staying seated right now because this is amazing. Have you ever been sent a REST service URL and you open up the page and it's all white with just the text and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, that's now on an item description page where you click on a thumbnail and it opens up in a map. And I'm like, thank you, I can use this now. Yes. And I was able to sit this time.
But wait, there's more. So as Harry mentioned, after I registered that URL with my ArcGIS Online portal, I'm able to add it to a map viewer. So exactly to Harry's point, this REST service URL could be coming from another agency. It could be coming within your agency. We're not copying and pasting data, right? We're just referencing the underlying data through that web service URL, which is key, because you don't want to have to copy paste things. The updating process of that is a nightmare. So here we have a global version of soils that I pulled into my ArcGIS Online.
You can go with this or you can go with that, and I prefer to go with that.
Yes. So next on our list was creating information products. So there's lots of data. That's great. I'm a technical person, but I don't really get spreadsheets. I'm a really visual person, so give me a web map, give me a web application. And beyond just a web map and web application, give me some tools so I can actually work with the information, right? So ahead of time, I put together a web map with calls for service. So calls for service including 911 calls, 311 calls, etc. So I'm adding that information to a map here, and it's a lot of points. In fact, it's over 1,000 points. There we go. This is great, right? It's pretty colors, it's beautiful. I don't know what it means. I can look at my legend here, and I can see there are a lot of different categories of information. And so here's a great example of starting with, I have data, but what am I supposed to do with it? This is not extremely meaningful to me, so let's walk through how we can make this more meaningful to me, but also your users. I have my data, it's in a web map. Did you know that within ArcGIS Online, you have access to analysis capabilities and tools similar to what you would find in desktop? Yes, there are analysis tools available to you within ArcMap, within ArcGIS Online that you would see in ArcMap. This is key. This is very important. I know that I need to better understand these dots on the map by finding hotspots or maybe even a heat map. So I can go through and perform that tool within my web map here within a few clicks. And that's really helpful. So I already did that. So instead of looking at dots on a map, I started with a heat map. I get a much better idea of some patterns in my data where there's a higher density of these calls coming in, different types of calls. Well, and that's helpful, but I'd like to take it a step further. So I ended up using a hotspot analysis, which is looking at statistically significant hot and cold spots for my data. So as I zoom in, we'll see some slight differences here. So it's not just showing me where things have happened the most, it's also showing me down here some bluish gray cells, and those are statistically significant colder spots. So it's telling me that things happen less frequently over time in those areas, and that's something I wouldn't see from my dots on a map. And yet I was able to get at that information within a tool, within ArcGIS Online, without using desktop. It's really important. So this, to me, is much more meaningful, right? Now, what's even more meaningful is creating a web application. Actually, I'm going to hold off on that. I'll show that a little bit later. But again, information products can include web maps, web scenes, web applications, and we're providing these tools to your users within ArcGIS Online. It's really powerful stuff. Any questions? So moving on, let's talk about information products. So we're showing a web map right here. We have our data. And the difference between just a map and a web map is the capabilities. We highlighted some analysis tools here. We can access data. We can add more data. That's really great. What can also be a wonderful option is to take your 2D data and make it three-dimensional. Who has three-dimensional data that they're working with at their organization right now? A couple people. Great. Because let's face it, we're not in a 2D world, right? This is a three-dimensional world. A lot of times we need to see our information from that three-dimensional perspective to really fully understand what's going on. So within ArcGIS Online, you have options for not only 2D visualization, but 3D visualization. And it's great if you have 3D data, but even if you don't have 3D data, you can still take your 2D data and visualize that as well. I have some building outlines, and they're two-dimensional, but I want to bring them into this web scene so I can get a better understanding of what's going on. Imagine, if you will, that it would automatically zoom in to the data I just added. We'll go a different route. Imagine, if you will, I didn't start with that demo, and I, in fact, started this with the second demo. So in web scenes within ArcGIS Online, over on the left-hand panel, you'll notice that there's some Esri featured content by default. So you can get a really great idea of some complexities of three-dimensional visualization that you can handle right within ArcGIS Online. Towards the bottom, I can find my content, both 2D and 3D. And further below, I can search and find content from other organizations, because we have to share with other organizations, right? We're not alone in what our own organizations do. We need other agency data as well. So you can go out and find that content and add it to your web scene here. To give you an idea of some of the complexities that a web scene can do, I'm going to use one of the Esri offered examples. It's going to include 3D buildings, a 3D DEM, but also snapshots from different perspectives of the data. And again, even if you don't currently have 3D data, you can use 2D data such as building outlines and extrude them on your three-dimensional base map. So as the drawing is continuing to take place here, I can click on different snapshots on the bottom here to show us a different perspective of what's going on. So as you create your web scene with content, this is really meaningful, right? It's no longer just structures on a two-dimensional platform, but we're getting that three-dimensional perspective. And keep in mind, this is all within my browser, all within ArcGIS Online. So if you're not working with web seeds now, that's okay, but keep this in mind because it's really powerful and it's something that you could be utilizing now. So beyond web maps and web scenes, I do want to talk more about web applications, and I think I'm actually going to talk about that. Wait a little bit longer. Hold on. Let's move on to our top 10 list and go back to number 8, which was inviting members. So imagine that we've created some web scenes, we've added some content, we've created some web maps, we have that authentication and the users and roles and groups organized. Now it's time to invite the users so they can actually start participating in your portal and getting benefits from that. Again, as the administrator user, I can go into my organizational setting and choose to invite members. You can invite members based on one at a time. You can utilize a file structure that includes username, role, email, some basic information. And if you're leveraging enterprise logins, there's a separate process for that as well. But for inviting members, it's really as easy as one at a time, or you can add them as groups. You have both options. Now for number 9 on our list, opening your data, providing that information that's publicly accessible, make it easily accessible to the public. I'd like to highlight a couple different agencies that are currently using open data. I'll start with Detroit, Michigan. Detroit is a small city, right? Small town. They have a wealth of information that they've provided to the public through ArcGIS Open Data. They've chosen to customize this, to brand it, to better match the rest of their organization. They have categories of information that further link into the Esri Open Data site. From there, users can easily click on, filter, and find the information they need. And when they find the information they need, they can download it in a multitude of formats, including, most recently, the Open Data team now provides the access for downloading to a file geodatabase for open data. The point with open data, what's really the most valuable piece of open data is for all of those public data requests that you get now, you provide the information in open data in one format, but people can download it in multiple formats. So you're not storing copies of your data in multiple formats. You don't have to answer the phone call and fill those data requests. You can send them to open data, and your constituents can get the information that they need. And by the way, they can also access it in a service format, if that is what they need as well. Now, this is Detroit, and that's great. I also want to highlight another great organization using open data. This is Ward County in North Dakota. The county seat is Minot. It's a much smaller agency, and I bring this up because you don't have to have 200 data layers in open data. Ward County has chosen their most commonly requested data sets to provide to the public through open data, such as parcel boundaries, their Ward County limits, and then other cadastral lines. So just to give you an example, it's not an all or nothing scenario. Put the information out in open data that needs to be publicly accessible and use it for as much as you need, right? But it's there, you just need to enable it and use it. So last but not least, on our getting started list here is managing your portal. So as an administrator within our portal, you have a really great dashboard to better understand what's happening within your ArcGIS Online organization. How many members do you have? How many open member accounts do you have? What are your members doing? What types of credits are they consuming? What type of products are they creating? Maps, apps. You can search by date frames, the last 2 weeks, the last month. This is a really great dashboard to see the types of information that's helpful to you.
I can't stay seated for this one. I cannot stay seated. Here's why. I have talked to so many people, and they wanted to know about the adoption of ArcGIS across their organization, especially when you start talking about an enterprise-level adoption program. The CIO, the mayor wants to say, how is it being used? Tell me how many people are using it. Well, now we can. You can see what applications are being used. You can see the number of people being used. I am so excited about this because if I'm a member of your org, I get to see what you're doing too. So, sorry. There we go.
That's okay.
Done.
It is important, so thank you. This is a great addition for any administrator, anybody who needs to better understand what is going on in your organization. So it's last but not least, the management component of your ArcGIS Online portal, what is going on, and this is your option. Okay, so let's take a breather. I just went through a top 10 list. I showed you quite a few things, and now I'd like to demonstrate some configurable app templates. So remember, a little while ago, I was talking about web app templates, and I wanted you to wait until I showed some more things. Now is the time.
Are we supposed to do the quiz now, or is that later? Or what number 4 was? Does anybody know what number 4 was? Oh, sorry, too late. No prize. It's a massive prize under the table, by the way. Yeah. Or
Next
a cookie
time.
that's up here. I don't know.
Next time, next time. So I wanted to hold off on talking about web applications because we have a lot of great options to help you build them without any custom code. And there's a lot of great options. I'm going to be focusing on the configurable app templates today, but with all the other ArcGIS Online sessions throughout the conference, there's a lot of other options to find out more about how you can build web applications. So the best part about these configurable app templates is they are fully supported by Esri technical support. They are configurable out of the box and no custom programming. Yay, I repeat, no custom programming. These are meant to get you up and running very quickly because we all have busy lives. You have a lot of other things on your plate. So we want you to be able to take your information, plug it into the interface with the tools that make sense for what you need, and deploy it to your users. It's as simple as that. So currently, on the screen, I think I have about 30 to 32 templates, and Esri's team is constantly evolving and adding additional ones. In fact, just a couple weeks ago when I put these PowerPoint slides together, the team added 3 more templates that did not make my PowerPoint slides. So
Don't judge.
So throughout the year, they're adding additional capabilities for you to build web applications. So I do want to highlight a couple options for that. So I'm back in my ArcGIS Online organization, and I need to make web applications of my parks and recreation areas. I've already created a map here with my parks and symbolized it the way I want. It's a nice, simple map, but this isn't what's going to be most meaningful for my constituents because my constituents are public users. So I don't need them to interface with this information in a web map. I really need to make a web application. So within my map interface, I can choose to share and to create a web app. Within this dialog, I'm shown those 32 configurable app templates. 32 plus 3 more configurable app templates. There's quite a few options here, so how do you decide? You can search for keywords to find templates that match capabilities that you're looking for. Also on the left-hand side, there's groupings for different type of capabilities to help break it down further. What's also very beneficial is that when you're looking at this information and you choose a template, you can choose to preview. So it's taking my web map that I have now and plugging it into the application template so I can quickly see, hey, there's some great tools here, a print option, share, base map changer. These tools, the functionality, this seems to fit for what I might need, but I'm not quite sure this is it. So I can go back and preview it. So you're not committed to that web application, right? But you can easily preview it. Instead, I'm going to choose this Finder template. I think that's going to work best for what I need. I need to add a title, keyword tag so it's discoverable, and add some description information. And once I do so, then it's bringing me to my configurable page. Now remember, I'm not writing any code for this. I'm going to configure a couple things and then deploy it. So on this page, on the upper left-hand side, I want to call attention to 2 options. There's only 2 options that we have to worry about for this web application template. So from map to app, I only have 2 options. App settings, which is the title. I'm going to call this Sarah's Parks. I can add a URL for an application logo. I could choose the base maps for this application, and that's all that I need to configure on that page. Next step, I need to configure the search options for this application, because for the public, I really want them to be able to search by park name to find the park that they need. So it's given me the option to look in my data that's included in the web map, and I can go through and choose the information that I want included in the pop-up after I search and find parks. Further down the list, I need to let the program know when users are searching for information, what field name are they going to be searching for? And I'm done. Let's see what this looks like. So it's building my application, it's setting it up, it's going to open it up. Sarah's Parks, I can click on my icons. These are the same pop-ups that existed in my web map. My web map behaves as I would expect. And let's try and find a park here based on the information that I provided it. And you can see that it's giving me a list of possible parks with the information as I'm typing in the letters. So folks don't need to know exactly how to spell the park name, which is helpful, but they're getting a drop-down list with additional information. So by quickly going through the configurable app template options that you currently have available, the most important thing to note right now is that you have a lot of template options and you should use them. You can go from web map to app in minutes. Oh, I have another slide.
With that particular app, can you search multiple categories on your table, or just select one? Search stuff. Like you were searching park names, but you had park addresses.
The question, and we'll answer quick, and then we're going to try and get through the rest of the slides. The question was a good one. He was just asking, can you configure this to search by multiple options, so park name and other by address? And the short answer is yes, ... Yes, it can be done. You possibly wouldn't use that template, but there are other templates to do things like that. Fair enough? Moving on, I did really want to highlight some examples. We're going through a lot of information here of how to set up your organization, how to share information with the public in your organization, and what does that really look like. I really wanted to highlight the city of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and what they've been doing. So the city of Brooklyn Park has been doing a lot of great work with ArcGIS Online the past year and a half. They have about 70,000 people in their population. Less than 50% of the population is Caucasian. A large percentage need to utilize services through the public services, et cetera. And so it's important to them to get information out to the public as much as possible for those who don't have access to these services. So that's one of their goals and missions, and they're using ArcGIS Online to do that. And by the way, they only have one full-time GIS staff person and a half person because it's an intern that they only get 6 months out of the year. So over the last year and a half, the city has been able to deploy many, many web applications for the public for very specific purposes. So this is an embedded web gallery, other applications that they've put on their website. So for all of us, in GIS or whatever you do within your organization, our website is a primary resource for the public, right? And what can we do as GIS people or working with GIS information to enhance that primary resource for the public? We can do things like embed those web maps, embed those web applications so they're easily accessible within the website. So Brooklyn Park embedded this map gallery here so that people can more easily find resources they have available. And to take this a step further, think about your own organization, and if it's, say, a public works department, on a public works department page, you could embed multiple maps and apps for specifically public works, right? Or land records focused maps. To give some examples of the individual applications that they put together, they're also utilizing Esri's application templates. Remember I mentioned This is a city of a population over 70,000 people. There's a lot going on, and they basically have one staff person with a half-time, part-time person. So it's really important to them to be efficient with their time and promote utilizing templates, less coding, keep things out of the box and simple. So in this case, when relating their voting information to the public, they use one of the application templates through Esri. So this is the public information or the localized information template. Another example of a template should look familiar to you. This is the Finder template they used for their parks. And so staff can go in and search by address and find parks within their neighborhood. Lastly, I wanted to highlight a really great way that they've been engaging their citizens and staff at public meetings in regards to, in this case, proposed land use. This is a story map swipe template where they have two web maps showing current land use and proposed land use. Simple information, not complex. It's imagery and it's land use, but this is so vital and so powerful for them to use at their public meetings. This made all the difference. And again, this was built, no custom code, and with one staff person. So hopefully to put all of our top 10 lists together and in perspective, City of Brooklyn Park can do it. You can do it too.
Thank you. Don't worry, there's an app for that. Michael, you look worried. We have an app for that. Don't worry about it. Jean did an amazing job at the plenary doing the symphony of apps. Do you guys remember that with all the music playing? So what I want to do now, though, is walk you through a couple of categories and let you know what apps I've seen get the most traction in an organization. So the first group of apps is for the field. And we have a ton of them. But the ones I would really like you to write down, the ones that I would like you to go and try when you go back home, is the Collector for ArcGIS and Operations Dashboard. The reason why is most field crews will look at using a phone or a tablet to collect data, and you can really improve workflows and efficiencies by getting rid of some of the paper. And in fact, I'm going to show you a real use case from the city of Los Angeles. The next set of apps are apps for the office. These are apps, again, that are not meant fully for GIS professionals, but for that person who may be a little bit more technically savvy and they want to dabble in GIS. So the two apps on this screen that I've seen gain the most traction is Community Analyst, which is a premium application. I won't be showing you that today. I don't have time for that. But Maps for Office. And that's putting in Excel, inside of an Excel spreadsheet, a map. People go buck wild over this because they have Excel spreadsheets all over the place. And then the last group is the story map, or is the apps for the community. And the one I want to highlight today is the story maps. If any of you saw the plenary and saw the Chief Data Officer for the City of Los Angeles, Lillian Corral, do her presentation, all of those were story maps. Those were out-of-the-box story maps that any of you have access to. So let me go ahead and show you a demonstration of this. So what you're looking at right now is an operations dashboard. It only requires a web browser for you to use. And the City of Los Angeles, their fire department has to do brush inspections to make sure that dead trees and branches are not on top of people's chimneys and so forth. That process took 3 months to do, all paper-based, and then the papers were given to somebody inside the office and they transcribed them into yet another system. That whole process was broken down and looked at, and we found out that the collector application can do it in just 3 weeks. And this is how it works. On my phone here, there is the exact same map that is on my screen. And for some reason, the connector is not working properly. But what it allows you to do is access the map on the phone and collect data. So on my phone, I would like you to pay attention to this parcel right here, because I'm going to change it from a blue compliant to a non-compliant. And it is sending the update.
Ooh.
Whoa, did that go too fast?
Ooh.
Shall I do it again? Let's watch the parcel above that. And please put your hands above the table so they can see that is not anything tricky there. If I can click on the parcel. All right, here we go. Compliant, non-compliant. Yay! All right. So the reason I'm really trying to highlight this is this application, it's freely downloadable for any of you guys and any of your field crews. It's gained traction tremendously. It's so simple. You just touch on the map wherever you want, and it's a pick list. So your subtypes and your domains that you have set up on your apps will be present in here. Yes, ma'am?
What kind of data table, if you will, are you updating?
It's funny you asked that, because Collector supports related tables now. So in this case, what we had was a layer of parcels, and we were in ArcMap. We published not only that parcel layer, but the related table. And let me go over to the web map and show you something magnificent. The same data that you see right here, but I can show the related tables. So on this parcel, there has been multiple inspections over time. So when we showed this to the field staff, they flipped. They're like, wait a minute, I can see back in time? I'm like, yes, you're a time traveler, because they had paper that they would have to carry out into the field. So this is the number one application I would like you all to go back and try to implement at your organization. I feel that the adoption rate is very high, and it's very successful. The other component of the Collector app is this operations dashboard. And the reason this is so powerful, this operation dashboard tells you in real time what that field staff is doing. So as the parcels were being updated from compliant to non-compliant, all of these numbers were changing. And as parcels get added to this layer, you will see the update that happens right here. So now all of a sudden you're engaging the field crew and their manager inside the office. And this has been very, very impactful. So please implement this one. The next thing I want to show you is ArcGIS for Office. So Excel is said to be the world's largest BI tool. Everybody has an Excel spreadsheet. So instead of trying to teach people that use Excel ArcMap, we're just going to let them put a map inside of an Excel spreadsheet. So I've already downloaded and installed this add-in, and again, this is freely available to you guys, and you can roll it out in a silent install, so you can literally push this out to the entire city, county, your entire staff, and they'll never know. I've already signed in, and all I'm going to do is add a map. So immediately what this map does is look at my Excel spreadsheet and realize that I have some tables already in my spreadsheet called contracts. Now I do have address information, but I also have XY information. I could have geocoded it again. But for those who really care, look, you can even use different coordinate systems. Woo! Not as exciting as I thought. But I'm going to use smart maps just like Sarah showed you, and I'm just going to add this data directly into my spreadsheet. And what's really powerful about this, to you and me, this is just a map with dots on it. But to somebody who uses an Excel spreadsheet, this is amazing. They've never been able to see their data in this format before. Now, inside of ArcGIS for Maps, there's a bunch of tools that you can use. There's the hotspot analysis, if there's a lot of points to find hotspots. But there's also this enriched data, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I talked earlier about the Living Atlas. There's over 5,000 different variables that are available for you in just the demographic component of the Living Atlas. And any one of those variables can be appended to this spreadsheet. The people who use spreadsheet go, but wow, they do backflips. I'm not joking, I've seen it. Because now the data from the cloud is being appended directly into their Excel spreadsheet. Data like household income, guess what they do? They go and make a nice pie chart out of it, and they add that to their reports that they generate from Excel. It's that powerful. So we can come and just look at any of the, let's look at net worth. Oh, look at that, 2021. We have data for 2021. So We can look at household net worth with base householders ages 15 to 24. And what that's going to do is add a new field of data right here. That's it. So in my example, I did a mile buffer around every single point. I aggregated that data for that net worth and just appended it directly to my, my Excel spreadsheet. And this is one of the ways that Excel spreadsheet users get more data to make their charts and their graphs. And it adds more insight into it. One of the other things that I wanted to show you was the ability to share and pull data in from ArcGIS Online. So there's this add dialog. I logged into my organization, so I know the data that's available to me. So if I look for something from Riverside, I'm now searching all of that content in my organization. And here you can see the supervisorial districts from Riverside. So that data can then be added directly to my map. And again, this is one of those things where somebody who uses Excel, they're like, wow, I didn't know I could bring all those different data layers together. And we can sit here and adjust the transparency as well. And then, of course, we can share this map back to ArcGIS Online. And if you really want to freak one of these people out, open their map up on a iPad. Oh, it's priceless. Make sure you have somebody video recording, though. You know. So that's... Thank you. So that's the second app that I really see gain traction with GIS around an organization. And then the last map or the last apps that I want to show you are the story maps. So at the plenary, you may have seen a portion of this map done by the city of Los Angeles. It's their walkability story map. Can you believe this is actually a GIS app? It is. It's actually completely hosted inside of ArcGIS Online as well. And we finally get to the map component of it. And what they did is they used our tapestry data to aggregate information around each one of their stops, their metro stops, to understand the type of people that live very close to them. But this style of story map is available to you. Here's another one. The Road to 2400. Has such a great name, I think, too. You know, it's completely hosted in the cloud. This is their ArcGIS Online URL. And these type of story maps are available. Now, I want to give you a few tips on story maps. The story map website, storymaps.arcgis.com, is where I'd actually like you to go to begin to make story maps. You can log into ArcGIS Online if you would like and make a story map just like Sarah showed you earlier. But what happens when you log in? This My Stories dialog or button appears. And what it lists is every single one of your story maps. You can also start to create a story map right from this location. And this is very powerful because there's additional features and functions that are available if you go this route than if you start from inside of the ArcGIS Online map viewer and then build a story map. So we can come in here and we can change the sharing properties and, again, just create a story map. It's listing all the different templates that are available to us. The one that we just were looking at, I like the map journal. And I would like the panel on the right-hand side. What do I call this? Hold on. I need two hands to type here. Don't hit microphone. And then I can just begin to add a section. And you know what? I want to go ahead and select a map. And now all the maps you're looking at here are the maps that I own inside of ArcGIS Online. So do you see the difference in approach here? Instead of starting inside the map viewer in ArcGIS Online and then creating a story map, I'm creating a story map and then picking and choosing my maps. Because you can have multiple maps in one story map. Multiple maps in one story map. That's pretty powerful. because you could have 6, 7 different maps that support one story map. And that's a very different concept than in the past where you had one MXD with one map and one layout, and you'd have to print one map. So I really suggest you go to the storymaps.arcgis.com website to start building your story maps. Okay. So in closing, in summary, all right, leverage us. Leverage the ArcGIS Online Cloud. We take care of a lot of the responsibility to make sure that thing works. Also, have focused content and think about the capabilities throughout your organization. You know, when somebody is not familiar with GIS, they may search on something called permits, and they expect to see really nice symbolized points appear on a map. They don't expect to see, you know, black circles with massive amounts of metadata. So please try to be mindful of people who don't know what we know. Utilize the ready-use content. You've seen a ton of it today. Rapidly deploy your web maps and use the templates. I would really like to challenge everybody here to go to your hotel rooms tonight, or even if you're out at a bar and you're sitting out there with a laptop, try to make one and share it. You can send it via email to your significant other and be like, look what I did while I was on this vacation. I worked, I told you. Also, don't forget to integrate with other business systems. This is getting a little bit more advanced for this intro class, but if you do have other business systems that can spit out like web services or even CSV files, you can dynamically consume that data live inside of your maps. So moving forward, here's what we would like to do. We'd like to challenge you guys to activate your ArcGIS Online accounts if you have not done so. And I know some of you didn't because you didn't raise your hand or you're just very shy. Our top 10 list came from our experience. It really has. We have over 10 years of experience with just ArcGIS Online right up here. So take them for what they're worth. Don't forget to share appropriately. There are things that should be private, and there are things that can be public. Remember that. And it's okay if you have private content. It's okay if you have public content. Self-service mapping. That's the idea of allowing others to begin to make maps. The Esri Maps for Office that I showed is an amazing example of that. And promote your work. One of the things that frustrates me the most is when I see amazing GIS work and I'm walking down the hallways and the people don't know about it, right? I mean, it took 4 years for me to build sewer infrastructure and storm drain infrastructure for a city, but nobody knew that. So make sure you promote your work. What you do is amazing, and it's the foundation for what other people are going to do. Remember that. Don't ever forget that. And if you want to learn more, the documentation is a great place. We have links here. You'll be receiving a copy of this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to see these links. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. We will offer this show again tomorrow if you want to come for a second round. And don't forget, please fill out your surveys. Sarah and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to present today. And the only way we're going to know if we did the right thing is if you tell us. I prefer it if you told us both the things you liked and disliked. Because if you don't tell me what you liked, I'm going to change it next year. Okay, so please do that. If you want to list 3 things, 5 things, feel free to. We have thick skin. So, okay, there's some more. If you want to learn more about ArcGIS Online, it's jam-packed here at the conference. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.